From the oldest religious ground with massive rock formations to one of the oldest human-dwelling caves in the world. And from the famous tomb of King Tutankhamun to the massive human statues of Easter Island, we explore 7 of the most amazing archaeological finds of ancient civilizations. It is not easy discovering and piecing artifacts and long-lost cities together, but archaeologists always seem to find a way. Today's video looks at archaeological artifacts that impress the world, and we uncover some of the mysteries behind them. We start with number 7, the Cave of Altamira. The Cave of Altamira is a great example of how archaeology and anthropology collide to make a beautiful tale. The Spanish cave features prehistoric drawings of creatures and human hands, and it was the first find of its sort when it was found in 1880. The Altamira cave near Santillana del Mar in Cantabria, northern Spain, was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1985. Altamira's cave is approximately 270 meters long, with twisting corridors and chambers. The main corridor is 6 meters high. Archaeological investigations in the cave have uncovered Paleolithic objects dating from the Gravettian period, about 22,000 years ago, through the Middle Magdalenian period, roughly 16,500 and 13,000 years ago. Between these two times, the cave was inhabited by many groups of humans. The cave's position was plainly advantageous for settlement, with a panorama of valleys and mountains, as well as a neighboring coastline region. A rockfall some 13,000 years ago cut off the cave's entrance. Altamira remained sealed until its rediscovery in 1868. While human habitation happened just near the cave opening, painting, sketching, and engraving occurred throughout the cave. The painters worked with ochre and charcoal. They exploited the natural curves of the cave walls to improve the polychrome portrayals, as did other Paleolithic painters. The contours may have inspired a specific depiction, or the artists may have employed this approach to add a 3-dimensional aspect to the art. Altamira's art incorporates realism, abstraction, and symbolism. The revelation fundamentally altered our view of prehistoric people, who were previously thought to be intellectually incapable of creative expression. The artifacts date back between 14,000 and 20,000 years, providing us with insight into the lives of our forefathers. The Altamira cave is a sight to behold. Number 6, Sutton Who. A limited number of visitors were invited to a celebration in Woodbridge, England, a little hamlet approximately 8 miles from the North Sea, in 1939. The Sutton Who is the burial place of a Viking ship. Even after more than 60 years, the Sutton Who grave is still regarded as one of the greatest archaeological findings of all time. The excavation, which was named for the estate on which it was located, Who means spur of land in Old English, unearthed a plethora of precious artifacts, including an exquisite belt buckle, a gold shield, a regal helm, and amazing brooches. These items are among the most important ever discovered in England, and many of them are now famous attractions at the British Museum in London, where many of them are housed. The Sutton Who tomb was essential for historians and archaeologists because it demonstrated that England was not a dead zone for the arts when the Romans left in the 5th century. According to British Museum curator Sue Brunning, the objects discovered at the cemetery, which date back to the 7th century, attest to the fact that the time was, if anything, a dynamic one for the Anglo-Saxons. England was hardly a cultural wasteland, she explained. This might explain why the Sutton Who burial has become so prominent in the country's collective social awareness. Number 5, Earth's oldest computer. According to legend, the Antikythera mechanism was the first mechanical computer. It was recovered at a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera, buried beneath 45 meters of water, and was used to compute astronomical positions. It's roughly as complicated as a top-of-the-line 18th century clock, with a box with dials on the exterior and an extremely complex assembly of gear wheels placed within. Because of the device's complexity, experts have realized that their previous notions about ancient Greek engineering may be incorrect. Nothing like it exists or has been mentioned in any known source since it was built. Based on what we know, this mechanism should not exist. Given its amazing complexity, it is logical to assume that the Antikythera had many predecessors. Yet none have been unearthed, making it even more remarkable. In Europe, the complexity and skill did not re-emerge until the 14th century, with the invention of astronomical mechanical clocks. How do you think this computer was made? It definitely doesn't have wires, and it's not magic. Number 4. The statues at Easter Island. Easter Island Moai statues are among the most intriguing and perplexing archaeological discoveries ever discovered. These sculptures are the main draw of Easter Island, a smaller Chilean island. Rapa Nui's ancient people built Moai statues between 1300 and 1500 AD. Easter Island, also known as Rapa Nui, includes around 300 megalithic platforms, each of which may have been built by a different tribe. The first of them is said to have been built in the 13th century, and several may still be found along the shore. For decades, the massive stone sculptures of Easter Island have enthralled explorers, scholars, and the rest of the globe. But specialists believe they have solved one of the biggest mysteries: why the statues are where they are. The statues are considered to represent ancestors who were tied to ceremonial activities, establishing a focal point for communities, but their purpose for their placement was previously unknown. Why do you think these statues were created? Do you think they are a key to something greater? Let us know in the comments. Number 3. The Terracotta Army. In 1974, a team of archaeologists in Xi'an, China, performed an excavation that culminated in the discovery of the Terracotta Army, the world's best funeral art. Hundreds of clay warriors were discovered buried near Emperor Qin Shi Huang's tomb. He was the country's first emperor. The clay soldiers were supposedly buried with him to protect him after death from numerous forces. This ancient building was built roughly 2,200 years ago. In addition to the sculptures, the archaeologist unearthed several weapons. They were neatly positioned within several clay tunnels. 4 major pits may be located throughout this archaeological site. 3 of the trenches include terracotta warriors and weapons, but the tomb is empty. Many parts of Qin Shi Huang's compound and tomb have still to be discovered. Historians think the intricately carved sculptures were created to protect China's first emperor after death. What's still unclear is where the emperor is buried or what jewels may be found in his burial chamber. How long do you think it took to build the Terracotta Army? Number 2. The Tomb of Tutankhamun. King Tutankhamun, or King Tut, is well known for his tomb, unearthed in the Valley of the Kings in 1922. During his reign, influential counselors restored ancient Egyptian religion and art, neglected by his predecessor Akhenaten, who conducted the Amarna Revolution. With the death of Smenkhkare, the young Tutankhamun ascended to the throne and married Akhenaten's third daughter, Ankhensenpaten, the royal family's eldest surviving princess. Tutankhamun's principal counselors were the old official Ai, who had long maintained links with the royal family, and the general of the forces, Horemheb, because he was still relatively young at the time of his ascension. Tutankhamun died abruptly in his 19th year. Scientists discovered signs of malaria parasites in his mummified bones in 2010, and hypothesized that malaria, in conjunction with degenerative bone disease, was the cause of death. In any event, he died without leaving an heir and was succeeded by Ai. He was buried in the Valley of the Kings in a modest tomb hurriedly modified for his use, and his intended sepulcher was probably taken over by Ai. Although Tutankhamun's tomb was visited and temporarily looted, the place of his burial was apparently forgotten by the 20th dynasty, 1190 to 1075 BC, when workers who were assigned to work on Ramses VI's neighboring tomb constructed temporary stone shelters immediately over its entrance. The tomb was maintained until 1922, when the English archaeologist Howard Carter discovered it during a methodical examination of the Valley of Kings. The king's mummy rested within a nest of 3 coffins, the innermost of solid gold, the 2 outermost of gold hammered over timber frames inside his little tomb. A spectacular golden portrait mask adorned the king's head, and various items of jewelry and amulets were found on the corpse and in its wrappings. The coffins and stone sarcophagus were flanked by 4 text-covered shrines of hammered gold over wood that filled the burial room almost entirely. The other chambers were stuffed with furniture, sculpture, clothing, chariots, weapons, staff, and many other items. Tutankhamun, on the other hand, has little claim to renown for his tomb. In fact, he is likely better known than any of his longer-lived and better documented predecessors and successors. His fame was cemented after the hugely successful Treasures of Tutankhamun show toured the world in the 1960s and 70s. Number 1. Gobekli Tepe. Gobekli Tepe is located about 16 kilometers northeast of Urfa, an ancient city in southeast Turkey that was originally called Edessa and was renowned as, quote, the city of the prophets. While this adjacent city has a rich religious history, it wasn't unknown how far back religion went to the city until the discovery of Gobekli Tepe, when UNESCO designated the site as a World Heritage Site. This site, which dates back to 10,000 BCE, is the earliest man-made temple of worship ever uncovered. The temples were found by a German archaeologist, Klaus Schmidt, who had previously worked on the Nevalori site in Dig, which is now thought to precede Gobekli Tepe. The temples are surrounded by 3-meter circular pillars. Each T-shaped monolithic limestone pillar is carved with reliefs of animals, including gazelles, snakes, foxes, and lions, as well as abstract figures and iconography. The discovery of bones at the site suggests that the hill was utilized for ceremonial sacrifices and feasts. Gobekli Tepe, Potbelly Hill in English, is appropriately called for its location in the cradle of civilization. The hunter-gatherers who built the temple lived in a world before writing, metal, or pottery. At a time, archaeologists thought humanity hadn't gathered yet to worship with priests and sacrifices. Yet, these Neolithic worshippers somehow organized themselves and found a way to cut and transport these 16-ton stone pillars up a hill and arrange them in a circular, ritualistic pattern. What do you think about these civilizations? Have you visited any of the sites on our list? And if you enjoyed this video, we have another like it of the most amazing archaeological finds that scientists still can't explain. I'm sure you'll enjoy watching it too.